right, so we have the final session for today. This is an education and community panel chaired by, well, myself, and we do have amazing people here on this panel. We have, well, we'll all take time to introduce ourselves, but we have Ali, we have Cory, we have Evan, and we have Patrick. And this is something that's core to Securium, and this is something that I'm very personally excited about, which is the reason why we started working on Securium. And we'll start off by, I mean, we have 45 minutes, so we have quite a bit of time. And this is, I mean, some of the questions earlier about education, the gentleman here about learning from some of the other industries, all these aspects. And there are so many things that we are doing here in Web3 in general that has been done before in other industries. So there's so much to learn. And like I said, Securium and in general, right? So it's a lot about the community aspects along with the technical aspects. So that is, I mean, we are trying to capture a whole lot in this panel, and we can go, I mean, we have talked a lot, and we can keep talking a lot about this as well. But before that, I would like to request all the panelists to take time, introduce yourselves, the projects that you've worked on related to education, community, the ones that you're working on, the ones that you plan to work on, fund, all those aspects. Please, Ali.
Thank you, Rajiv. My name is Ali Atiyah. I've been a contributor to the Ethereum ecosystem for some time now, but right now, mostly I am working on something called Y Academy, and it's an auditing collective. We audit smart contracts, currently mostly Solidity. And the way it works is we have a core group of auditors who audit smart contracts, but then we bring along a group of developers, researchers, aspiring auditors that we call fellows. It's analogous to a teaching hospital where you have the doctors, and then you have the residents running behind them. So it's sort of like that. It is trial by fire. So these fellows are shadow auditing real contracts, and they're expected to contribute, and they're expected to add value to the auditing process. Our goal is to increase both the quality and the quantity of competent auditors in the space. Because in each of our iterations, we audit, let's say, 4 code bases, and we have 12 fellows. Every once in a while, one of these fellows will turn out to be a promising rock star in auditing. And so what we do is we reward them, we invite them to stay along as part of the core group. And what this allows us to do is to accept more fellows the next time around. We have a fellowship, because the person who was a fellow and became a resident gave us more bandwidth. And the virtuous cycle continues, basically. So our goal is basically to keep this snowballing effect going. Increase the number of auditors in the space, and I'm sure you're all aware there is a acute shortage generally in the ecosystem, and the stakes are really, really high. Another goal we would like to alleviate is, as a public good focused collective, basically, is to maybe reduce some of the misalignment of incentives that we sometimes observe in the auditing ecosystem, because audit firms, they have this backlog of audit requests. So there is a huge imbalance between supply and demand, which means audit firms, I'm not saying all of them do this, but some of them, they have an incentive to speed things along and just rubber stamp something on an audit, which leads to, obviously, which is bad for the ecosystem at large. Rajiv, you were asking how to get involved. So, we encourage developers, researchers, anyone who is quite advanced in software engineering generally, if they're interested in security, to join our fellowship programs. And if they excel and they want to stay longer in the academy, we welcome them. We also welcome advanced auditors to come as our guests for, say, a week, 2 weeks. And we will let them hang out with us, with our core group, with our fellows, and share their knowledge, basically. So we do that as well. We invite some of the prominent experts sometimes. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So if you haven't checked out Y Academy, please do check it out. I'm sure once we go around the introductions, we'll talk more about it. So Brian, we're just going around introducing. Please take your time and introduce yourself and your efforts at Eat Security and the education community as well.
All right. My name's Brian. I'm the CEO of a company called ApeWorks, and we're building a Python-based smart contract development framework called Ape. One of the target audiences we're kind of building it for is the security community. There's a lot of data work and working on the core code that you need to have efficient tools for, and that's kind of what we're trying to build out, especially on the data side, being able to query large amounts of data from these providers in an efficient manner using the familiar Python tools you have. I sort of got involved in the security community when I got started over 4 years ago. At the time, there wasn't really a good place for all of the auditors and developers to gather together. We ended up making a Telegram group back then. And since then, we did a couple meetups in person, and that really helped just kind of supercharge that collaboration across the security realm. And now that group has grown over 1,000 people today, and it's made security in Ethereum the best, I think, in the entire industry. It's definitely more advanced than any other chain that I think exists out there.
Cool. We'll dig deeper, but Cory?
Yeah, my name is Cory Petty. I have been involved in a myriad of things throughout my time in the Web3 ecosystem, starting from starting a podcast, the Bitcoin podcast, which was one of the earlier podcasts out there about crypto, which then led into a network of podcasts and eventually Hashing It Out, which is the sponsor that doesn't have words on it. My fault. And which is a technical podcast that tries to have deep conversations around this technology, why we use it, why we think it'll work, and maybe roadblocks ahead to share information for people to get access to these great conversations we have in places like this that aren't accessible to people trying to get into the industry to understand things. So, and then my 9 to 5 is working at Status, which is an organization trying to provide infrastructure for community building in a lot of ways. And that's, in my opinion, the only reason blockchains have value is because there's a group of people willing to agree that the assets on them are worth money and value. And so it's those communities that are really what give any of this a meaning. And we need tools to do all the stuff outside of making transactions. And so communities are really big for me, and allowing them to form and operate in a way that's more conducive to how we do meet space, as opposed to using the tools we currently have at our disposal, which don't quite do that. I've also been involved with Y Academy and Securium and F Security and as many things as I can to try and
Gitcoin kernel.
Kernel, yeah. I started the kernel security program, which was an effort to get people to start to think about the concept of Web3 security appropriately and push them in the right direction so that they can find the places to get the information they need to become useful and hireable and contributing to the overall security of the ecosystem in general, which is something that Securium has grown to become one of those best off-ramps of, I want to know where to go to learn something. This is the material I need to end the curriculum and difficulty. I need to become useful and hireable, and then off ramps from there to go to like getting experience doing things, partially within Securium, and then more explicitly with firms or audit DAOs, like Spearbit and Y Academy to start getting real hands-on use, or becoming a secure developer for a program. So like I'm incredibly passionate about the concept of getting people the right information they need, and in a network that allows them to work on things they care about in a way that's useful for them.
Amazing. So I think we'll dig deeper into each one of them. Evan?
Howdy, y'all. I'm Evan Van Ness. Cory interviewed me on the Bitcoin podcast once upon a time, in I think it was February 2017. And I remember thinking like, wow, maybe I'll be somebody in this space someday. Like Cory's interviewing me. That was really exciting. So thank you, Cory. Probably your least listened episode ever, but hey, it is what it is. So there are at least 4 PhDs on this stage right now. I have an MBA. They're all PhDs in technical subjects. I did the CFA exams. So your insights from me may be about what you'd expect. So I have a newsletter called Week in Ethereum and a little venture fund called Start Bloom Ventures, where we invest in the future of Web3. I came up with that phrase. I'm still trying to figure out what it means. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Mccrory. And I think, as you mentioned, there's 4 people on this stage that have PhDs, which is crazy. Although I think still the finance aspect's really useful, considering it's all about money anyway. Like, I didn't know what a bond was. It's quite embarrassing. Yeah, but I think from an educational perspective, so I was in academia, and I first got involved, there's 2 parts to the story. There's what I did in the past and what I'm doing now. When I moved to London, I met this guy called Antonio Sabato. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And he had this weekend workshop just to train blockchain developers to get involved in the space. And so I started helping out with that workshop once a month. And at first it was a paid for workshop. But what I noticed in my first class was they're all males. And I'm like, why is there no females here? This sucks. And it's because, I don't know, I guess because we thought it was a registration fee. So we made it free for women to come. The next month we had like 70% women, but then the guys stopped showing up because they're like, oh, why are the women getting this for free? So then we just made it completely free for anyone to attend. I did that for about 2 years, and we had about 50 people, once a month. And it was really exciting. There's just normies in their Web 2 jobs who just want to, understand more about Web 3 and might help them with their job or just break into the space. And for the workshops, normally when I teach anyway, I normally focus on more the mental model to make sure that you have the correct mental model before you then dive deep into the technical, the technical aspect of it. So for example, if you're going to do like the auditing, you need a good mental model before you go to audit something and actually understand the code. So I did that workshop for 2 years, and then when I used to be a lecturer, and I taught this MSc on cryptocurrencies, and I didn't really tell the university, but I sort of ran it at night at the same time, and then they eventually found out and got really angry at me. But I didn't know what to expect, so we just booked this room. I booked like 150 people, we had like 300 people show up, and they're all standing at the back. So it was really popular, and we ran that for 8 weeks. And I really enjoyed that period. I just enjoyed teaching people. Not for profit, just for fun.
The university got upset because you were teaching people, but not through the university?
Yeah. I remember that was by week 3 they found out about it. They called me to the office and like, Paddy, you're not supposed to offer this for free. And I'm like, YOLO. I didn't care too much. I just thought, well, why not? There's people here who want to learn. So then I tried to do a startup anyway, and a lot of the education stopped, and then COVID happened. And then that's like the dark period. Then the startup finished, and now I don't have to worry about it. And now I can start teaching again. So I'm now doing this online course that's going to last for 8 weeks. We're now in week 4, and it's really focused on layer 2 protocols and roll-ups and payment channels. And I'm saying the first 4 weeks is about the background. What is a node? What's the UTXO model? What's the account-based model? What's a smart contract? How do you break them? Why doesn't this shit scale? Then eventually we get up to, why payment channels and roll-ups. And that's running right now, and it's, again, free, online, accessible. So if anyone's interested, I was just, check the video, you get to see me try to chat to people for an hour, and that's just fun in its own right. So yeah, that's my intro, I guess.
Cool. I mean, this is turning out to be a fun panel. So lots of cool introductions, 4 PhDs, an MBA, and mixing it up. One of the most popular newsletters, and one of the most popular podcasts, and Telegram groups, and DAOs, and fun stories from academia. So let's mix it up, right? So I think we have covered quite a bit of ground in terms of introductions. But when we think of education in this space, right? I mean, seriously, Securium is really all about that, similar to Y Academy, right? What do you think the state of education is, right? I mean, let's maybe stick to Ethereum that has a history. We have had 5-7 years of protocol rollout, specs, and the community grow out. What do you think the state is, and how can we do better? Does anybody want to take that up?
I think judging by the question that new people come into the ecosystem ask, we are still far behind. You get technical people who spend a week or two, and they still ask questions that's really very smart people, but it just tells you how complicated this space is. There is a huge breadth of things that you have to cover in order to fully comprehend what's going on, not just technically, but even as a user. So I would say we still need more. We still need more in educational initiative and at different levels. So Securium is obviously targeting a different slice of the community than Y Academy, than kernel. So we need increases quantity, but also different initiatives at different layers, basically, of the stack, of the knowledge stack, basically.
I think for new people coming in the space, there's a lot of energy and excitement, and they want to learn more about this new technology, and particularly the deep technical fundamentals of how it works. There's not a whole lot of great ways that we're funneling towards, funneling that energy in ways that it could be productive. And a lot of that is just experimentation. And, we're kind of educating ourselves. How do we funnel this energy in the right way? How do we turn you from a new person that's really interested into a contributor and a real, really putting your energy into it. So there's a lot of interesting, like Y Academy and the kernel program, all those, a lot of interesting experiments being done. And as long as that continues, I think we'll find better ways of doing that. But it's just a process.
I started in learning about Bitcoin and the podcast. I read Reddit and I understood everything that happened within the entire ecosystem for the week. Thinking about even understanding the niche that I found myself in today and what goes on there is impossible. So we've expanded to this point where no one person can understand it all at a technical level. And even in our efforts to build material and communities for education have kind of iteratively gotten better, but the early ones weren't sustainable. And we're only now maybe coming into the point where we have somewhat of a sustainable model for curating the information, the stuff we write down, the curriculum that we give people, depending on what level of expertise they're coming in at, and have a system around it that's sustainable. We tried a bunch in fragmented ways, but there was no real way to pay the people who were doing it because we were trying to simultaneously work on the technology at the same time. Typically, in the traditional world where normies live, we've delegated that to the educational system, right? Higher education, but this doesn't work in that scenario because what is the current state of the art and ways to do things or educate people or how something works changes so fast that there's no evergreen material. Well, like there is, but it's like small pockets of maybe cryptography or, like how does Bitcoin work, which, is still outdated compared to when you look at the layer 2s and all the other stuff, right? And so like we can't really delegate to higher education until we have some slowing down in the race and the pace of innovation. So that ends up with like whatever structures we have need to be very dynamic in their ability to stay up to date with what's currently going on and make material that's useful for people to jump in and consume it. Like F-Security was an attempt at this, but most of the people were too consumed with the work they were doing to keep up with the like corpus of information we were trying to maintain that other people could access. And it became secondary to the actual work of increasing the technology. And I think maybe now we're getting to a point where like someone can spend their entire life or career just focusing on proper education. And that's exciting.
I think just to follow briefly up on that, the things we've seen be successful are more like kind of trade-based models of education versus more of and less so more of academic ones. So I think trade-based models have really worked, like training people in the act instead of doing a lot of theory work.
I think there's a lot of truth to what you said about how like things move too fast, and because of that, somebody will put together like a resource in a certain period of time, and then it's outdated, and then usually the Peter principle is involved, which I think that's the Peter principle, but basically it's the idea that you eventually get promoted to outside of your range of competency. And this, I'm misconstruing it to mean you start with the education, but oftentimes, like you have this site and it takes a lot of work to put it together or whatever it is, awesome, whatever, awesome X, and then people realize that like you understand this well enough that, there's a talent shortage and, they can promote you to do something else. And so it's a perpetual sort of treadmill of trying to keep up the information constant. I don't really try to do that, of course. I have a topical thing, so I like to think that those things are downstream of me and I can just wash my hands of it.
Yeah, I guess there's 2 points I can make. So one is the echo Cory's comment about the university and the lack of skills there, I guess, to actually train people in this space and the inability to do that. One of the problems academia is facing is just they can't compete compensation-wise with a lot of the crypto companies. And so a lot of crypto companies just buy out entire academic teams. And so they're just not there to teach anymore because they're just being bought out by some crypto company, which is good for the academic, because universities treat them like not in a very good way anyway. They're just... Anyway, that's a different topic. But that's one part, is that higher education's just missing the skills because they're just being sent elsewhere. I think the other issue of education is that a lot of educational material over the past couple of years has been built for people who are like missionaries, where you'll read about it, it'll become like your life passion, and then you'll go down the rabbit hole and absorb everything you can. Where now, I wouldn't say that's saturated, but really we should be moving towards the 9-to-5ers. We keep calling them normies, because they're not missionaries. They're normies who just want a job in the space, and they want job security, and they want to learn the skills to contribute to this space, but still take care of their family and have their weekend off to walk their dog. And really, the educational material now needs to start moving towards that audience to make it easier for them to actually take the leap and still believe they have some job security and understand why this is important. So I feel like a lot of the educational material could be changed for that audience.
And that's the tricky part, right? So I think we have covered a lot of ground. So we have covered different depth, if you will, right? So people are coming in. So Securium all the boot camps are really trying to get people who are coming in from the Web 2 space, right? Who don't probably understand what a blockchain is. So you had to learn about Ethereum. And to your point, we started the boot camp last year, and we had, I think there was some material, and that's when EIP 1559 happened, and we had people point out that, we already have 1559, so this whole chapter or part is outdated. And I said, I started making this material 4 months ago, right? So it just moves so fast, right? So we have that depth, the expectation that people come in and they find material, that can onboard them as an on-ramp, but then you also have people who need to stick along. I mean, it could be auditing, it could be anything in this space, right? So there are just so many moving pieces. So, I mean, I think we've sort of pointed out at multiple aspects, right? We have too many things. We have too many things moving at a super fast pace. I mean, we have the merge happening. We have multiple languages being developed. We have the tool chain that's being developed by ApeWorks and hundreds of other companies as well. And we have multiple chains, so people are looking at roll-ups and bridges and layer 2s, right? So how do we, I mean, from a education perspective, what are the possibilities? Because do we see anything in this ecosystem slowing down, maybe at the base layer levels? I mean, and this is security, right? So we're looking at the whole building blocks. So we're looking at the whole stack. So Solidity versions are coming up. We have Viper, the new releases happening. We have Phi, so many languages coming up. We have layer. I mean, what do you see as some of the solution points? I mean, this is just to address the pace of innovation, right? How do we solve this?
I feel like it's still underknown how you can make a very good living in security in this space. You don't even have to have a job. If you're good, you can go, find bounties, do Code Arena. I've even tweeted about this before, and I had people argue with me, oh no, that's not really true. And I wonder, do these people know what auditors charge by the week? Because it's substantial, and there's maybe not a lot of transparency to those markets, but it's surprising to me that there are not more people attracted by that. And yes, the onboarding is difficult, but where there is opportunity, often there is less. You got to figure it out more yourself, right?
Yeah, just if I could jump in about the auditing. I remember, I think it was a few days ago, I was chatting to some people outside, and I was like, I remember 2 years ago, an audit was $17K a week, and they laughed at me. Because it's just well, it's way more than that now, Patty. Don't know what it is now, 40, 50K or something ridiculous. So you're a good auditor, you just work 3 weeks a year. You make the same as most people in their life, or basically yearly salary.
So absolutely, I think there's a whole lot of demand from an auditing smart contract security, or even in general security, right? So there's no dearth for demand, right? We have some of the fantastic teams, the sponsors, and so many others in this space. I think it's really all about the supply side, right? How do we build up that supply side, the talent pipeline? How do we build that content? How do we keep it current, right? How do we incentivize the content creators to keep it current, right? And people are looking at multiple ways of approaching this, and there are, we have DApp Camp, we have Build Space, we have developer DAOs. People are trying to build DAOs around it. Which of those? I mean, these are all experiments, right? But what are your thoughts on which of those might work? What are the challenges? How do you guys see this?
Have we considered cloning Samson?
Well, if he were a smart contract, sure.
I think anyone in this room who's had to try and build something, or in this whole conference, or in Amsterdam right now on DevConnect, would agree with me in that there's a tremendous shortage in talent. And the best way to get people new into the system is to educate them and build a system that gets them useful so that you can shape them into what you need them to do. Because you can't hire within the ecosystem unless you trump their salary, and their salaries are getting pretty high. And so we need to find ways to build communities that make information that's useful to get them hired somewhere so we can build this stuff faster and in a secure way. And that's really hard. So everything's in Discord. We're trying to make something that is a little better than that, but we need better community building so that the people with limited attention can say something to help push something in the right direction or get the right information so they can go somewhere. I mean, we have a myriad of media, but I mean, if you Google or DuckDuckGo, depending how security conscious you are, like crypto content and media, you're most likely going to hit garbage, right? It's going to be some pump or some scheme to try and take advantage of how you can make money passively or whatever, or chilled content. So we need better content that's dedicated towards like getting people educated and pushing them in the right direction, that isn't trying to sell them something. But how do you pay those people to do that? It has to be people like at the end of the day, like most of the things we've tried so far have fallen on their face because they can make better money elsewhere instead of educating people. And they were motivated to do so because we all have to pay our bills. And education hasn't been a bill-paying thing yet. We haven't figured that out yet. So we have to find ways to do that.
It's sort of a public goods problem, right? So like one thing blockchains are supposed to be really good at is solving public goods problems. So maybe we should think about that more.
I think one way to describe what the panels have been talking about is we have a human scalability problem. We almost need to kind of make a jump in order to catch up with how much that needs to be done. So I remember when the Y Academy proposal was made at Yearn Finance. Wow, almost 2 years ago. I can't believe it. But so one of the things I mentioned there is that traditional ways of education and training are obsolete. They are not going to work. They are not scalable. What I mean by that is the pull model, in which you go out there, you scout for talent, and then you interview and you give them tests and all that, and then you filter them out, and then you say, here's how much I'm going to pay you to do X and Y. I don't think this is scalable. I don't think this is going to get us anywhere. Instead, at least we're trying to do, since the original proposal of Y Academy at Yearn Finance, is to follow a push model. So you're just basically creating a substrate for people to jump in and start contributing. And the moment you spot real, genuine proof of work, you start rewarding it really quickly and retaining it. And that way you saved yourself a huge admin overhead. And you saved yourself from all the problems that come with that, like human judgment and all that. So we need to innovate in the, this is kind of like meta. We need to innovate in how how the educational process, the recruiting process happens. And I think this push model, in which you create the substrate for people to contribute, and then you quickly identify promising talent and reward them, is one of the ways we can scale this and catch up, basically.
All right. So maybe let's switch tracks, right? So we do have education community. We've talked about education, some of the challenges, and there's certainly, I think, one aspect we did not touch upon, and there were a couple of questions earlier, was, and this is something that we have seen at Securium, is there's a mismatch of expectations, right? So when we try to onboard people, and this is probably traditional education, like Patrick was saying, academic orient, or maybe even the pull model versus what we are looking at. So people come in with an expectation that there is an academic course curriculum with X, Y, Z, and things won't change, and I study this, and I can go and get a job at ABC, right? But that's, like we discussed, that's not true, right? So there's that aspect as well. But I don't know if you're going to solve that problem right now, but let's switch tracks and talk about the community, right? So Securium TrustX is really about bringing the community together, and we have representation from really, almost every project in the space. So how do we think we can come together better as a community to solve some of the educational challenges? We have newsletters, we are trying to create content, we are trying to pull, push DAO models and various things. Anything that we can do better from a community perspective?
I think one of the ways that the Web3 community has found itself is in working together, and the power of working together, even though some companies might be competitors to each other. There are ways to collaborate. And I think, this public goods problem of onboarding talent and education is like two sides of the same coin, right? You want to grow, and if everyone wants to grow and they are able to collaborate on producing more robust pipelines for talent development and recruitment and education, and that'll only pay dividends in your ability to grow further. Treating it as a zero-sum game kind of chokes off that pipeline at the source, and it's not a sustainable model, and it's kind of what we're taught from more traditional companies, and diving into this Web3 paradigm of like, we are in it together, or we are going to make it, right? There's really a lot of power to it, and I think leveraging that power is key to the success of the industry.
I think that's a great point. So maybe that sort of segues into the communities aspect, right? So how do we come together as a community? Because everything in this space is not happening on a website or behind those sort of chains, right? So things are happening on Discords or Telegram channels and so on. And I know that Status is working on community-focused service, a product, right? So can you share anything that is publicly shareable at this point that's going to help solve this problem?
we're building, like we came out was the idea that like you need to have a place to go, like you need to have technology that's useful for community building, and that includes more than just blockchain execution. And we're trying to provide that in a way that is similar to the experience of Discord, but is more native to crypto and censorship resistant. So that should allow us to build meeting places that are relevant for specific contexts. And then from there, like you have people paying their attention to a community based on conversations and pointing them in the right direction, or being financially rewarded for their contribution to that community, right? Like we go where we want to learn, or we can use the information we have to either help someone altruistically or earn from our contribution to communities. So we need to build something that allows us to do that. And if we can do that for educational content, then we can maintain stuff for people to consume and platforms that we can build that people can play in, and we can watch for specific types of talent and then motivate them to do work that we'd like them to do if they want to do it with money or whatever it is that they're motivated by. But like you have to get people in a place around a context before you can either push them in a specific direction or help them go in this direction they want to. And the tools we have today kind of suck at that. Or they're isolated, or they're not approachable, or they're not updated so that someone goes and reads a blog post about how something works and they go and talk about it to someone else and it's outdated, so if they walk away, right? And we're only now just getting to the point, I think, as an entire ecosystem where we've reached this threshold of legitimacy that the outside world is taking us seriously. Like it's no longer like, oh, that game that people are playing, blockchain is a scam. It's, oh, this has legs, there's potential, there's money, if I apply myself, it's not going to go away next year. And we don't currently have the structures to support those people coming in, or even us having the shared knowledge of pointing them to the right place to go to learn what they want to learn, or talk to the project they'd like to do in order to do the work they want to do. Like we're trying to help build that, and we'll be doing it in an open way so that we don't screw it up. And you'll have the tools to do that type of stuff based on whatever you want to do.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't check out the Status app, and communities is coming up very soon, is what I understand. So we have several questions and maybe fewer answers, but we'll just go around the room and see if there are any questions for the panelists. If not, we'll continue discussing. Any questions for the panelists? All right. Do you want to shout out, or you can go?
It's the end of the day. You just shout it out.
So you guys are all building like the same kind of thing, like education, pipelining talent, connecting people to where you think they could best plug in to help, efforts, security being, the whole point of this conference. Have you guys ever thought about I like what Ali was mentioning, like the whole dynamic of kind of fellowships, residents, kind of following more experienced people around. Like, I think you guys are kind of maybe overcomplicating the dynamics. Like, people just want to have fun. And if you can provide a place where they can go and it doesn't feel like they're learning, right? Like, everybody has your own special interests, whether that's, playing video games, learning how to sew, like random shit, right? If, status communities, whatever the platform may be, where people can kind of coalesce and have their own specific place where they find people, humans, like the human one-on-one interaction is not scalable in a way that you can provide a completely unique dynamic to that person that you want to onboard. But I think that having a place where that conversation can slowly begin to like take place with people that is like relatively unique but can scale over time. I think, having some place like that is just fun, They will learn because they like working with you. They're interested in who you are. Everybody here that's on stage has like a unique personality. You have your unique skill sets. The 4 PhDs and an MBA. There are people out there from various different domains that want to come into this space and they don't know how. And so I think having a place, just forget all the complexity, just create a place for people to have fun.
Did you pay him to say that, Cory?
I did not, but I mean, he's my coworker both in the podcasts and in Status. But that came from a real place because he joined the podcast community that we built in Slack. That was just like, hey, if you listen to us, come join and talk and hang out. And then we were able to create, and then now that community is the most important thing of the entire podcast. The content is secondary to the quality of conversation that happens within that community. And he came because he was interested and he wanted to hang out, and he stayed because it was fun. And I've seen countless people come into that place because it's fun and they're interested, and then stay there, learn, and then find themselves careers within this ecosystem because there's a group of people that are willing to shepherd them into the direction they want to go. And we just need to do more of that. And because it's not like, I'm not going to do it all. And like, we all need to do it and give people places to go so they can learn in a way that's not trying to sell them something that they don't want, or bias the educational material in a way that's like, see my view because it's the right view. It's just like giving people the options to play, learn, and then educate themselves to go on to do work, because we're all hiring. Finding work is good if you can educate yourself, but you have to do it in a way like you need an option that allows you to do it in a way that's like sustainable for you if you have a 9-to-5 and you have only a certain amount of spare time to spend doing something. And like you would like to do that in a fun way.
Yeah, I mean, I could. Do you want to go first, Ali?
Go ahead.
Oh, I just want to echo that the sense of community is sort of like having like a Slack group where people can come and just have fun and, put memes up if they want as well and enjoy themselves. Like, that's sort of how I got started in cryptocurrencies. Mine was more for purpose because I was doing a PhD in Bitcoin at the time, and there was only 2 academic papers. And I read them and I'm like, oh, what do I do now? It's so I joined these IRC channels like Bitcoin Dev, Bitcoin Wizards, and that's how I really got, understanding like how the hell does this stuff work. And then when I discovered Ethereum, it was actually because of a conference about a paper about rock, paper, scissors. And then I joined the Gitter channels because I was like, oh, that's where all the Ethereum people hang out. And I just started asking questions there. So I just feel like just having like an open forum where you can just go join like no chat rooms for us nerds. We just go in and just have fun and chat. And sometimes, this is YOLO, isn't it? This is fun. So I think that's really important to get people on. So obviously your podcast offers that to people, which is great. It's this first part's the chat, the second is the podcast.
Thank you.
How do I make Week in Ethereum fun?
Get a Slack. Get a Status community.
Just not Discord.
The problem we had was like, here's the issue that comes from building these communities. And more often than not, like if I think about 2017 during the ICO boom, everyone used Slack. And because incentives were so heavily aligned with the communities involved, right? It's like, I'm doing an ICO, here's where all the information is. This is now Discord, because in Slack it was very easy to impersonate people, and you had problems with it getting spammed or being sold and people losing their money. So because finance is so intrinsically involved with all of these projects, they're way more susceptible to being scammed or biased in a certain way. And like you said, like these things need to be public goods, or we need to be able to find the communities that aren't crap. And there's always going to be communities that are crap because there's always going to be people that want to take advantage of naivety. And like that's really like the main issue. It needs to be fun, but it also needs to be like not there to take advantage of you. And the tools we have to do that kind of suck.
Yeah. So, I mean, it needs to be fun, and there needs to be incentives. And I don't know if you'll have the time, but do you have thoughts on learn to earn, where you have specific financial incentives? I mean, this is sort of counter to fun, right? If people are not coming in for fun, how do we incentivize them? And this is sort of the model that Ali was saying as well, that if there's so much demand, right? And if we just let the talent come in as opposed to seeking out.
Yeah. We actually have this. We have first-hand experience. So the fellows that are coming to Y Academy and learning, they're not paying. We are actually paying them. But we're not just offering them blank checks. We actually let them appraise each other at the end of the program. And we leverage crypto-native tools like Coordinate, and it has been amazing. So it's not uncommon for a fellowship cohort to see someone making $200 while someone else made $8,000. Definitely learn to earn is a thing, and it works really, really well. Especially, as I said, if you remove all the inefficiencies and top down, oh, I'm going to judge you, here's how much I'm going to pay you. No, you appraise each other. And it has been working fantastic. Yeah.
Cool. We may have time for actually just one question, please. Yes.
I'm hiring, and I want to hire people with a breaker mentality, not a builder mentality. I don't want architects, I want burglars. How do we find and cultivate people with that hinky security mindset?
Bounty programs, Code Arena, like giving people games to play that are very financially rewarding, because you don't win at those games unless you have an attacker mindset. Capture the flags and more of these types of things. And then the people who want to hire that talent that comes through it before they go off and just be shadowy super coders need to fund these programs. And that's probably the best way to scale it. And that way, not only are we getting quality bugs being found by people with attacker mindsets, also outside of smart contracts alone, right? There's a lot more to security around this ecosystem than just making sure a smart contract works appropriately. Is doing more of that and funneling people to them so that way they're fun, and then they end up being able to potentially pay their bills or find a career out of it.
Cool. So I think we're running out of time. So my advisor had a counter to that, and his counter was good firemen don't need to be good arsonists, right? So something to think about. But yeah, great. So maybe it's the end of the day. I think we're all super tired. But just to keep it fun, if there's one thing that you would suggest we need to do to sort of get the community together, right, in solving the problem that we're talking about, what would that be? We've talked about incentives, various aspects, right? What would that one thing be that you would suggest, let's say, Securium to do, right? Something very targeted that Securium can do to help your projects or to help the broader community at large. Anything that comes to mind?
You know that scene from the Social Network where they're doing that like live hacking event inside? Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's been a while.
That'd be kind of fun to do.
Live hacking, all right.
Live hacking, yeah.
Noted.
I mean, you're doing it. Like this and Securium and the efforts that are involved is what needs to be done. There just needs to be more of it. Like you can't handle all of the people that want to come in. So there needs to be more of it so that we can handle that load. And the more we legitimize ourselves, the more that is going to be the case. And so thank you. Keep doing it. It's not easy, and it requires a lot of special attention and full time. Like you're a one-man army, so thank you for doing it, but we need more of it.
Thanks a lot. we do have a whole bunch of volunteers, so I wouldn't take much of the credit. But yeah, I mean, next time we'll definitely try to fit in more than 420 people. I don't know what that number is. Maybe it'll be 5,000, but we'll shoot for it. All right. Anything else? Any final thoughts?
I got one, I guess, sort of very separate to what they were thinking. I think it's just to stay weird. So I think one way I can get people into it is I normally show them the DevCon video of everyone dancing on stage, with the silly little dance. And I'm like, guys, these guys actually get paid well. If you just learn this, you can go join them and dance on stage. It's just really weird, but people look at it and go, oh shit, I don't need this corporate job anymore. I can go have fun with these guys and build this new world. So yeah, it's just stuff like that. It's just fun, good culture.
I need to find somebody who can teach me how to do that stuff, but I'll make a note of it as well. Cool. All right. I think we've been on track with the time, so let's not delay this. But thanks to the fantastic panel, so please give them a round of applause.